Okay, so I was saying to illustrate the declaration of variables, we can have a variable called commission. We can also declare another variable, which we can call sales, can say rate, and this will be probably int. And we can, once we declare the variable, we can assign it a value by using the set command. And then we can use maybe select statement, select say commission amount equals, and this can be rate times the sales amount, which could be something like maybe 1,000 quarter. So when we do that, we are declaring these two variables, and we are able to use the variables by using the select statement. So to assign a value to a variable, you have to use the set command. And so I can also say set commission equals rate times maybe 2,000. Then I can come here and say select commission. Okay, I'm getting that error message. Anyone who can help with why we're getting that error message?
Is it because you've left there's a space near that too on the comma?
Sorry, come again.
Now it says declare at commission numeric 5, 2. There's space. Is there supposed to be a space between the comma and the 2?
Yeah.
The first line.
The first line. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's not. You know why we have used this? Why have we assigned it this value?
I don't know, sir.
There is a problem with converting integer. Both of these are integers, and the commission is set to a numeric value with decimal places. So what I can do is to say 2000, okay, and I want to divide this because it's a rate, so I divide that by 100, so percentage, like that, okay. Because now one of these numbers, it has a decimal point, then it means that it can be converted to a numeric value. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So it's just a question of conversion from one data type to the other. Okay.
Yes.
And of course, we can give it a name, alias, say commission amount. Okay. So that when the value is displayed, we have the column heading there. So that's about variables. Any questions? So for variables, you always start by using the keyword declare, then the name that you want to assign to the variable, followed by the data type that you are going to use. It's not always that you have to use the strings. You can also, sorry, it's not always that you use numbers. You can also use the strings, employee name, and we can say voucher. Then we can say select. We set the employee name, set the employee name equals Robert Mwanza. And you can say select employee name Now, if I were to execute on this part, I would get an error message because I have to include the definition there and the assignment here before I can see the value. So I have to execute all of it like that. Okay. Okay, so that's about variables. You can declare variables in one line by separating them by comma. So you can say interest and something like that. Okay, but it's easier when you're troubleshooting if you put them in one line at a time. Okay, so we have some examples there. This is a declaration of one variable in one line. And the second example is a declaration of two variables in one line, separated by a comma. Implementing batches. The other new word that you come across is the keyword print. Okay, a batch uses the print statement to display user-defined messages and values of variables. You can also use comment entries in batches in the following ways. Okay, a comment is a line of code which is not intended to be executed. The purpose of putting a comment in your code is to inform the people who are going to look at your code, other programmers or you yourself, in case you forget what you are trying to do because of passage of time. So comments in any programming language are never executed by the computer. They are intended to be seen by programmers who are going to examine the code after it is written. So in SQL, there are two ways in which you can implement statements. The first one is when you need to just indicate a comment in one line, you start with double hyphen, then the comment. But if you want to indicate a longer comment, then you can use forward star and you end with star forward slash. This is very common in most programming languages now because it's something that comes from Java, the Java programming language. So most of the programming languages on the market which are derived from Java, they'll use this kind of commenting. Okay. The other reason why you would need to use a comment is when you are testing your code and you suspect that the code, a certain part of your code is maybe causing the problem. So you can comment it so that when executing it, when testing your code, that part is going to be skipped. It's not going to be executed. Okay, let me go back to Management Studio and look at, okay. So I just remove that. So I want to start a new line, or I want to declare a new variable called name. And I want to remember that this is an employee name. So after I declare the variable, I can put a comment saying employee name. Or right at the beginning, I can put as a section where I can say variable declaration. So you see, when you use a single line comment, it's only for that line. Immediately go into the next line, it's going to be back to the normal code. Okay. So you can put the comments before the SQL statements you want to be executed or after the SQL statement you want to be executed. And then you can also have the mount line now, this one, if you don't put the closing pair, it's going to treat everything after that as statement until you go and put the closing pair like that. Okay.
Yes.
So when you have a longer comment, you can use the multi-line comment. Okay. Okay, let's use the print statement and see how it works. So the first part, I've declared the variables. Then I want to assign the values. So I say assign values to variables. So I say set name equals set rate as 10 or 15. Okay. Then I can say print name, print rate. Okay. So it's able to show me the values assigned to the variables. Okay. I can also include message. So employee. Oh, let's just assume this is a simple payroll application. Okay. So I'm able to print a message which can be seen by the user using the print statement. Okay. Any questions?
But how come it's able to print something that you did not declare, like the way you set the name and the rate?
Okay, you mean this one?
Yes.
Okay, here there are two things. We have variables, this one and this one. This is referred to as a literal value. Okay, that is, it's a fixed value that I'm going to use during execution, which will not change. So the print statement can print a literal or a variable.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, let me go back to okay, some guidelines for creating batches. You cannot combine statements such as create default, create function, create procedure, create rule, create trigger, and create view with other statements while creating a batch. Essentially, what I'm saying is you cannot have a batch. Within the batch, you are creating maybe a procedure and you are creating a rule or a function. The function, if you are going to create a function which you need to use in another batch, in a batch, then you have to put it in a separate batch. So the statement is like you want to create a table and then assign an index. That you can do because you can do that in one batch. But if you are going to create a table and then you want to create a view based on that table, then you cannot put them in one batch.
Okay.
Okay. Batches, once created, can be executed using the execute statement, which can also be abbreviated as followed by the name of the batch. Okay. You cannot bind rows and defaults to columns and use them in the same batch. You cannot define and use the check constraint in a batch, in the same batch. Okay. Now, these limitations are important for exam purposes and troubleshooting. So you can get an exam question which will ask you whether the statement is true. So you have to remember that when you are dealing with batches, you cannot create a check constraint and use it in the same batch. You cannot drop objects and recreate them in the same batch. So you cannot have in one batch you have a drop table, and then a few lines down you say create table with the same name. That is not allowed. You cannot alter a table by adding a column and referring to the new column in a batch created earlier. Okay, so the rest should be straightforward. Now, I refer to programming constructs. In SQL, or specifically T-SQL or Transact SQL, there are three constructs that are used. Okay. These allow you to perform statements based on some conditions being true or false. And we say that we can include them in a batch. Okay. The first one is the if-else construct or statement. This one is used when you want the SQL server to execute one statement or one set of statements if a given condition is true, and execute a different set of commands if the condition is false. Then there is a case statement. And a case statement is just an improved version of the if-else statement, which we'll be looking at in a moment. Then the while statement is a statement or construct that is used for looping through a set of statements while a certain condition is true. Okay, let's start with the if-else statement. In all programming languages, whether it's Java or PHP, JavaScript, C#, you'll find they always have the if-else statement. And the if-else statement is used for cases where you want a statement to be executed if the condition is true, and another statement to be executed if the statement is false. And the syntax is as follows. The syntax will differ depending on the programming language you are using. but generally they have similar syntax. You have the if statement, if keyword, followed by a statement which should be, when calculated or evaluated, should either be true or false. That's a condition. And that will be followed by one or more statements, a statement, SQL statement, or a block of SQL statements, which should be executed if this is true. If this condition turns out to be false, then SQL Server is going to skip over this. It will not execute this part. Instead, it will come to this part where it says else and then execute this. Okay. Here's an example. Okay, maybe before I give you this one, which is more complicated, let me start with a simple illustration. Let's go back to Management Studio. Okay. Suppose we have a scenario where we have sales agents who are given a target to say that if you sell items worth 12,000, more than 10,000, then you get a commission of 10%. Otherwise, if the sales amount is 10,000 or less, you get a commission of 5%. So you won't know in advance how much the sales amount is for a given sales agent. So you can create a batch and include the if-else statement to be able to check and use the correct commission rate depending on the sales amount. So what you can say is that you can say declare sales sales amount, and this will be small money, and then you can have another one, declare rate, which can be numeric 5,2. So I can say set sales amount equal to maybe 12,500, and we want to set no, okay, I won't use the rate just now. So I've assigned the sales amount, and I can say now I can say print. Sorry, I want to illustrate how to use the if. So I say if sales amount is greater than 10,000. Did we say 10,000? 10,000. Then I want to say print and the commission is going to be the sales amount times say, what did you say, 15% or 10%? 10%.
Yeah, 10.
Okay. Divide by 100. Else, if that is not true, we want to print the sales amount, which is going to be times 5. Okay. So what we are trying to do is we want to check the sales amount, the commission end would depend on the amount of sales made by that sales agent. Those who have sold 10,000 or more, the rate at which they will be paid will be 10% of the sales amount. Those who have made sales lower than 10,000, they are going to be paid at 5% of the sales amount. Sorry. Okay, let me just check the value. Okay, let me do this, set the rate first. I'll say rate is equal to 10, and this one I'll say rate is equal to, I have to set the rate, set the rate to 5. Then after that, I can now print can declare commission as numeric 5,2. So then I can say print. Then I say set commission equals sales amount times rate. Once I do that, then I can print the commission that I've calculated. Or let me use select statement. Select, and we'll say that's a commission equals I need to make use of this one. I want to print the commission, and the commission is going to be worked out by multiplying the sales amount by the rate. Okay. What am I? Sales amount. Oh, sorry, I left out this part. Okay. So this sales amount is 12,500, and so this is greater than 10,000. So the rate for this is going to be 10%. So 10% of this is, oh no, we need to multiply by, to divide by 100. These are percentages. So amount, divide. Otherwise, it's going to give us a number that is much higher than what we are supposed to get. Okay, so 12,500, at 10% should give us 1,250. And so that's what we are getting. If we change this to a value which is less than 10,000 or 10,000 itself, then the rate which is going to be used is going to be 5%. So if I say 10,000, it means that this is going to be skipped and it's going to use this rate. So it's going to say 5% times 10,000, which is going to 500. So that's how you use the if-else statement. You have to declare, use a condition which can evaluate to true or false. And if this is true, the statement following immediately after it is going to be executed. Otherwise, this statement is going to be skipped and it's going to execute this statement instead. Now, in some programming languages, if you have multiple statements, you need to put them inside curly brackets. But in SQL statements, you use begin and end word. So let me just go back and show you the PowerPoint presentation. I'm running out of time now. Okay. When it cuts, we can just resume. So you can see that here are the declaration, and I have a select statement. Okay, let me just let it finish, then we'll resume for another maybe 30 minutes to just wind up this section. I have less than 1 minute before it's 40 minutes for this second part. Okay.
Yes.